Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Pitch Talk.
We are fans of football dropping vlogs, blogs, videos and podcasts on the beautiful game.
Check out our videos on YouTube and Instagram's IGTV,
including special feature segments, vlogs such as
5 Minutes with the G,
The Straight Shooting View,
Coaching with JBK,
audio on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Podomatic, Spotify,
Mixcloud
and other podcast platforms.
Join the Pitch Talk revolution on Twitter, Instagram,
Facebook
and our official website www.pitch-talk.com.
The pitch is where we eat,
the pitch is where we sleep,
and the pitch is where we talk.
I can see you now. I can see you now and then. I can see you now.
Pitch Talk
special feature segment.
Hey everybody, what is up? My name is Straight Shootin LJ and welcome to this third part of our special feature series about recent COVID postponements, potential Premier League restructures and much more. Now in this one, this final installment, we look at, is there integrity in football anymore at the top level of the game? Is there? Also, is COVID exposing a lack of integrity from Premier League clubs? Has the pandemic done that? Are the COVID postponements, are they selective in nature? And also, should bigger clubs, considering they've got on average bigger squads, be forced to play their under 23s or even younger or fringe players if they have, say, a bunch of cases of COVID, for instance? Hey, bigger resources, bigger squads. So should the bigger sides be forced to do that? And, should players also be played out of position? If you've got square pegs in round holes because of COVID infections, it's kind of like, well, should it be tough titty? You got a big squad, you got 25 men, deal with it? Or should it be handled a little more carefully? Should the Premier League be kowtowing? But it's one of them ones as well. The quality of competition in the Premier League, the integrity of the competition, is it being hurt by clubs? And is it currently fair with the amount of postponements that have been going on that seem to be selective? Also as well, we do round out with, our clubs thinking about the fans with these postponements? A lot of them obviously are happening at very, very short notice when fans have already bought their tickets and bought train tickets and everything else as well. So let us know your views and we'll see you on the other side.
Pitch Talk special feature segment.
Now, I hear the arguments from both sides of the coin. I can see strategically how it benefits Arsenal, and I totally understand where you're coming from, Nathan, in terms of how it, and Jamie, in terms of how it works in our favour in terms of the amount of games that we play and how they fall, and particularly the fact that we're not in Europe. I totally understand the logical thinking that everyone else has been taking these postponement breaks. It does look like real shaky times for us at the moment with, the Xhaka suspension, the fact that Odegaard, Smith Rowe's injured, plus we've got a few players off at the AFCON. I absolutely get it. And the fact that Odegaard had COVID. But for me, it's just the integrity part. It's the integrity part that's killing me when trying to understand the whole situation. Because I'm not going to dig out other clubs and what they've done. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of postponing the game. If we're going to postpone the game, that means we've got a COVID outbreak. If we've got a COVID outbreak, that means you're shutting down the training ground and everything like that. There's no news of Arsenal doing anything like that. There's only news that one player's got COVID. So for me, it's like, well, we're showing a side to us where it's just looking bad. And some people will say, oh, what do you care about looking bad for? Well, in terms of, it looks bad all over. Like, like I said, in terms of like squad use, it looks like we've got a manager, yeah, who doesn't care about squad players. Like I don't know, I'm not around Arsenal squad, so I don't know how they all are in terms of wanting to play for Arsenal, and whether they're actually bothered that things like this happen, yeah. But I would like to think there are players in there that are vexed because they want to play football. And they want to play under a manager who wants to give everybody an opportunity to showcase their talents. Like I look at Leeds, perfect example of a club who, yeah, okay, they haven't had COVID outbreaks. Apparently, they've had loads of injuries, and they're just cracking on with it. We've seen in the season they were getting battered week in, week out with these big injury problems. They've had Bamford out, they've had Rafinha out, they've had other key players out of the squad. Yeah, they've just been cracking on with it. Yeah. This weekend, they had a 15-year-old on the bench. They had 18, 19-year-olds come off. They got 2 more players injured. They're just cracking on with it. You don't see them crying. Like, Bielsa's doing what I'm starting to see as why he's been called an incredible coach. At first, I was criticizing him, not criticizing him, but criticizing the fact that why is this guy getting called an incredible coach? What is it about him that is incredible coach? He hasn't won anything. He hasn't done this. He hasn't done that. That's what I was saying. But now I'm starting to see where other coaches will give him his credit. He creates a system. He gets in players from all age groups. He coaches them and enables them to play within his system. Whether they win or lose, he knows he can rely on whoever he's going to call up to try and play and execute what they've been coached to do. That's a coach. I get it. Now, going back to the Arsenal situation, I just don't understand what's going on in terms of, if we haven't got an outbreak, where's the squad players? Like back in the days, if we didn't have a midfielder, you stick a defender in that's football. This is just going back to the golden age of football. Yeah. Well, I can only talk about our golden age in the early 90s, mid 90s. That's what clubs used to do. If you ain't got a player for a certain position, and you can't loan a player in or you can't transfer a player in, you're using one of your other squad players to fit that position. It's what you have to do. It's part of the game. It's what you did in school. Do you get me? If your star striker wasn't there, you're sticking a midfielder. You're sticking your best midfielder up top. If your star defender's not there, you're sticking it. Do you get what I'm saying? That's what you had to do. I just don't get it. You don't, when your goalkeeper gets injured and you ain't got a replacement goalkeeper in goal, you don't abandon the match because you haven't got a goalkeeper on the bench to swap him over with. You stick someone in. I'm just thinking of those basic logics. That's what's irking me, because the integrity of the game is getting destroyed, and it's like it's getting papered over. It's COVID, blah blah blah, what not, and also it's a money thing. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely get what Jamie's saying in terms of, obviously clubs are thinking about the money side and how much money's on the line, and, I get it. But in terms of the integrity of the game, that's not what the game's about. Do you get me? You have squads for a reason. You have coaches for a reason. You're coaching the squad. You have backup players. That's the whole point. When one player goes down, you've got another player. If you're a bigger club, you've got backup players. Then you've got youth squad. Then you've got the underage youth squad. Yeah. Also, you've got the under 23s, and then you've got the youth squad. So you've got an abundance of players that you're meant to be able to choose from. Whether they're good or not, yeah, that ain't down to. That's every club's individual case study. Whether your youth squad's good enough, whether Arsenal's youth squad is good enough to fit into the first team, that ain't Man United's problem. That's not Liverpool's problem, Chelsea's problem, Brighton's problem, Burnley's problem. That's Arsenal's problem. That's down to Arsenal. Arsenal, that's the point of you having coaches and a coaching team that's in sync to get these players ready to play for the first team. That's no one else's problem. So that's not the fans' problem. People, Like, and another thing that's irking me is people are not thinking about they're not thinking about the fans. Like, obviously, I don't go to games anymore, but the whole reason why I didn't renew season ticket for the last 2 seasons is because of shit like this. Because I could see this BS happening, like shit like this, knowing that oh yeah, I'm gonna be going to a game and then on the day of the game it's gonna get cancelled because of COVID. I just knew it. Like it's gonna be a waste of a season ticket because I know that the normal pattern of going on a Saturday or going on a Thursday isn't going to happen because there's going to be delays and blah blah. Games getting postponed. I'm not going to be able to go. I ain't going to be able to sell tickets now. I sold a second ticket. Then someone else. Then I'm going to have to give the person back their money because they can't go on the next day. It's, like they're not thinking about the fan. They're definitely not thinking about the fans. Like this is the integrity of the game's gone at the top. Seriously, it's gone at the top. It's ridiculous.
You know what, Gav? I mean, yeah. I mean, I think you're spot on. I mean, you mentioned about Marcelo Bielsa, but remember, Leeds are a smaller club, so you've also got to factor in that they may have asked for postponement of games because at one point I think they had like 11 first-team players out. Where does that sound familiar? Because the season before, we weren't getting cut no slack. We weren't getting cut no slack at all. Everybody was laughing, oh, who was champion? Like, we weren't getting cut no slack at all. And people were trying to mock us like, dude, we basically got a whole first team out. Because we did legitimately have about 10, 11 players out at once. No one was backing it for us. So, like, the league, if the Premier League ain't going to back it for us, they ain't going to be, as defending champions, it was one of them ones, they ain't going to back it for Leeds. So Leeds, I think, is one of them ones where, yeah, Bielsa's a great coach, no doubt in that, no doubt. And like from like my experience of managing the Ibis Fours a few years back before the merger, it was one of them ones where, like, to keep a team's morale up after you're getting beaten 7-0, whatever the case, there was one where I had 4 dropouts on the morning of a game. Where it's one of them ones where, like, we had 4 dropouts on the morning of a game. We had to play 90 minutes with 9 men. It was against Polytechnic, ironically, our local rivals from over the road. Whereas one of them ones, but we got beaten 13-2. And the referee even, like, was just basically playing linesman in our favour. Because he was like, nah, man, like, you lot have got it hard. Because they had, 11 players and 3 subs. And they were using them. And fair play to them. But the fact is, it's one of them ones where it's like, if you've got enough players, period, whether they be from under 23s, whatever, you got to promote them up. Because remember as well, I said this precedent has been set. And this is where I was mentioning about double standards. The precedent was set 2 years ago, where us as defending obviously Champions League winners, is one of them ones, the FIFA Club World Cup. That's a glorified PR mission for FIFA, and I've said that since 2005. So it's one of them ones. So we obviously had to do that. We wanted to send a shadow squad out there. We didn't want to send no first team squad when we're trying to chase the title. We didn't want to send no first team squad out to Qatar for 3-4 weeks. We didn't want to do that. And especially at the New Year Christmas New Year period, you having a laugh. We didn't want to do that. At least the difference between us and Man United 20 years ago is that we won it. But it's one of them ones. We didn't want to do that because at the end of the day, it's like, well, we're going to have to play a whole under 23 squad in the FA Cup and in the League Cup. And it's like, we didn't want to disrespect those cups. Again, we didn't do what Man United did 20 years ago. And it's like, yeah, we don't care about the FA Cup. We're going to play in this FIFA Club World Cup. We need it for PR. And it's one of them. So it's like, I think I said Bielsa, it's one of them ones where Leeds have probably applied and said, no, we got this many players out. The league have gone tough titty. You got to play these games. So with the COVID thing, it's one of them where it's like, as I think you rightly said, Gav, it's one of them ones where, yeah, you put square pegs in round holes if you ain't got the round pegs to go in the round holes. Pure and simple. How many times did we play together for the Ibis Fours, Gav? And I had to go and goal. I'm not a goalkeeper. I've still had it this season. Where it's like, I've had 2 Man of the Match awards officially. I've had 2 Man of the Match awards, and both of them came for me being in goal. I'm not a goalkeeper. I'm a centre back. But we didn't have a goalkeeper. But guess what? We still had to fulfill those league games, and league rules state that, boy, if you got 7 or more players, you got to play the game. 7 players is the bare minimum. So it's one of them. You got to have a centre back up top if you've got 6 centre backs and no striker. You put one as all right, put 2 of them as defensive mids, which again has happened to me as well for a few games in what eventually ended up as a title winning season. We were narrowly losing games, but I was playing at DM. And it's like, dude, I'm not a DM, but bugger it, square pegs, round holes. We ain't got no one to play alongside someone else. So I think it is one of them ones where you got to play people out of position. Might be fun to see Virgil van Dijk as a striker, get Joe Gomez back in the lineup. Yeah, there's so many permutations as to what could be done, but at the same time, but I said, it's a case of if your first team's wiped out, then I said, like with us and our title defense, when we had 10, 11 players out at any one time, you've got to play youngsters. You've got to play people out of position. Sorry, but that's just the luck. That's just the way it happens. Whether it be injuries, whether it be COVID, it's just got to happen. But it's an interesting point you made about fringe players. Imagine the confidence. Imagine how much that messes with the confidence of fringe players. Where it's like, yeah, we got this pandemic sweeping through. We got 10, 11 players out, but we still don't trust you fringe players to do anything. It's like, wow. But I said, Arteta would probably rather again get postponed until he has a stronger squad, because he knows that his job's on the line. And it always comes back to that, because of the money, because of the results. And football's a results and money game. You can't get away from that. So it's madness.
Yes, you make some very good points, Gavin, on this about the integrity of the game. But the integrity went out the window the moment that teams like Chelsea and Blackburn were buying players just to win the Premier League. Look at the integrity of Chelsea at the moment. The first moment that what's his name? Current manager Tuchel starts to have a dip in form, he's out the door. There isn't a question about how long he's going to last. He's won the Champions League, yeah, fair enough, but unless he wins it back to back, and I'm talking 3 times, he ain't staying. He's got to win that Champions League as many times as Real Madrid did, and that's basically putting Chelsea on a even playing field with Real Madrid in terms of shirt sales and all the other stuff. Bringing players through is not Abramovich's issue. Now, I see what you're talking about in terms of integrity of Arsenal not playing the youngsters and stuff like that. But how many times have we played youngsters in the last few years in terms of bringing them through? And I know that we've got a consistency of numbers now, but I'm talking about in Wenger's days, between 2010 and I believe it was 2018. I think he only brought through 2 youngsters from the academy. So that says it all. So it's been coming. It's been happening. It's just a case of it's now showing because COVID is around. Yes, we've got youngsters at the moment being brought through because of the exploits of Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and all of those guys. They were being brought through just before Wenger was leaving, so they've continued their good form since then. But most of those players didn't come through. Most of those players have been at the club since Wenger was around. Now all of a sudden we're bringing players through since Emery was around, or the other way. we're just basically bringing players through for the sake of it at the moment. Tavares, a signing. Same thing with a couple of other players. If we're talking about bringing players through, then we should have had a left back before we even thought about signing Nuno Tavares. And he had a really tough game against Nottingham Forest, to the point where he got taken off before half time. So yeah, this has been coming for years. It's just a case of our biggest era was between 98 to 2015, essentially. So a good 16 years or 17 years, whatever the case may be. But it's now over. We have to look to a new future where integrity will be called into question regardless, because that is what the Premier League is all about now.
That's an interesting point you make about integrity of the game at the top. And this is something I mean, you know, from the old PT shows and videos, I've been extremely critical of for years. And even obviously because you guys know me from before, it's one of them ones where it's like, I've been critical of this way before even the original PT shows back in 2010. The integrity of the game at pro level, well, I'll put it this way, there's no honor among thieves. And at the end of the day, even pre-pandemic, these clubs weren't thinking about the fans. Remember some of the Pit Stop push points and live shows when we were talking about them charging 60 quid for, Arsenal Man City? And fans were like, no, now you're taking the mickey. They've been taking the mickey from before that. It had been happening from before that. Look at season ticket prices. Look at season ticket waiting lists, like 12-year waiting lists and all that kind of crap. And it's absurd. And it's one of them ones. So these clubs have been mocking the fans for a very long time now. And this pandemic has just exacerbated that. Because you look at how many games over the years have been moved for television. Look at the fixture list. Say the fixture list comes out on August 20th. Just for pure instance. Comes out on August 20th. By August 23rd, 8, 9, 10, 15 of those games have been rescheduled for TV. Because they want to get their billions. They want to get their money. And they're mugging the fans off. And I've said for a while as well, even pre-PT, about the proliferation of coverage. The proliferation of coverage on different channels, that does not work in the fans' favour. Because if you're paying 60 quid plus for Sky Sports, remember Sky used to bundle, and I don't know if they still do it now, but remember they used to bundle movies and sports together. You couldn't break up that package. So you were paying 50 plus quid at least just to get, if you wanted sports, you had to have movies and vice versa. So you might watch one movie every year, but you're still having to pay 50, 60 quid north of that as well for the whole package. And it's mockage, and you can't break them up. But then you had Setanta come in. That's another 6, 7, 8 quid on top. Then ESPN after Setanta went, another 5, 6 quid on top of what you're paying for Sky. And then now you've got BT Sport where you're paying another 8, 9, 10, 15 quid on top. Then you got Amazon jumping in as well, who are slowly taking over the world. More on that on other vlogs and podcast episodes. But you got Amazon jumping in as well, and that's another few quid that you're shelling out if you want games for Amazon Prime. So it's like, all told, you could be paying close to 80, 90 quid. And it's like, and even then you look at the 3 p.m. blackout rule. You ain't even getting every game of your club. And you can't because of the 3 p.m. blackout rule, which is not even legislation. It's not a law. That 3 p.m. blackout, ironically enough, is supposed to be for the fans. It's supposed to be protecting these clubs because they're thinking, oh, if everybody can watch a game on a Saturday, nobody's going to go to games. It's like, how archaic can you get? And it's one of them ones that's been in place for decades, and it's like, dude, like you can't run things like that anymore. But yeah, they want to turn around and sting people who are doing the quote-unquote illegal streaming services. And I have a personal interest in one of those cases. But that's neither here nor there. But the fact of the matter is they want to sting people for that. But yet they want to be mocking, still holding up this 3 p.m. blackout rule on a Saturday. And then rescheduling games for TV where it's like, oh, yeah, let's have this big game on a Monday night. Nah, but what are you doing? Now people who have booked their tickets a week or two out, you're saying to them, nah, you got to change all that. And that ain't cheap. And then people got to get days off work. You might not be able to get that. So you're out like a couple £100 per game. It's mockage. So, yeah, man, they've been mocking for a while. I said a long while. And now it's coming home. It really is coming home to roost.
Yeah, so that's been the third and final part of this Pitch Talk special feature segment about potential Premier League restructures, COVID-19 postponements, and a hell of a lot more. Now, I said, it's a case of, do you think there's integrity in football at the top level anymore? Has COVID exposed a lack of integrity that most may not have known about before with some nefarious looking kind of stuff when it comes to especially selective postponements? Are the Premier League picking and choosing the games that they want to postpone and the ones that they want to allow or force to go ahead? Also, should bigger clubs be forced to play fringe players, their under 23s, their under 18s, if they haven't got enough first team players to play games? Should it be a level playing field for everybody? And also, should players be played out of position if you haven't got enough players? If you ain't got enough first team players, if you haven't got first team striker, should you have to play a centre back up top just to get the games fulfilled and keep the integrity of the competition? And also, are clubs thinking about the fans with these, applying for these last minute postponements after fans have obviously booked hotels, bought their tickets and all that? Comment section is below, and also www.pitch-talk.com. That is the official website for everything Pitch Talk. You can catch our podcast there, special feature segments like this one, and much more on our website, youtube.com/Pitch Talk. You can catch special feature segments such as JBK at the 2021 Vitality Women's FA Cup final, his video diary from that. Also Pitch Talk at the Southern Amateur League Senior Challenge Cup final. That was quite a lot of me and the Gman. Very enjoyable day. Caught up with some old peeps as well, and some old mates as well. Also at Pitch Talk on Twitter. Tweet with us, follow us, see what we are up to. Facebook.com/Pitch Talk. Become a fan, become a friend, become a member of the group. Join the footballing revolution we are working so hard to create. As said, at Pitch Talk on Twitter, at Pitch Talk on Instagram as well for vlog previews and much more. On Reddit at Pitch Talk there as well. You can catch our podcasts on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many other places, including Podomatic and Verbal, VURBL.com, at Get Verbal on Twitter. Tweet them and tell them we sent you, because we are Verbal ambassadors and proud of it as well. You know what? I have been Straight Shooting LJA, and until next time, thank you for your time on this Pitch Talk special feature. From me, from JBK, from the Gman, and Nathan Arsenal, who featured on part 2 as well. Take it easy, peeps, and we'll see you next time.
Join the Pitch Talk revolution.
Check out the official Pitch Talk website,
www.pitch-talk.com.